Hello, welcome to another Sonic Lab presentation special. We're here with Della from IK Multimedia, and the reason we're here with Della, because we're doing this remotely, is because we're looking at the IK Multimedia Uno Synth Pro, which I have here. Della has the desktop version there. So Della, tell me, what's your role? I mean, you are in charge of the Uno Synth line, is that right?
Yes, I'm actually the product manager / product designer for the Uno range. So both the Uno Synth, the Uno Drum, and now the Uno Synth Pro in both of the versions.
Well, I've only had this for a short while, but I mean, the one thing that I do remember about the Uno Synth itself, the little desktop version, is it had a real sort of beef and a presence and sound to it. And so far with the Uno Synth Pro, I'm finding the same thing. So good job so far there.
Thank you.
I'm finding it's kind of really kind of speaking to me sonically as well, and because I think it's very important that you have a decent sounding, oscillator source, and these have plenty of weight. So what were you trying to achieve with the Pro range?
Well, is kind of an idea, but the majority of the time was a synth needs to be inspiring, something that you turn it on, you play a sound, and you get inspired by it, and you get
excited.
Yeah, excited. You have fun. You just play, and you just go and follow the flow and have fun with it. So that was the main goal: having fun with the synthesizer. So something that again inspires. And of course, starting from the Uno Synth, we wanted to improve all the aspects that during the last 4 years at this point, all the users have suggested some of the ideas that we had in the beginning of the process, and we couldn't do at the time, given by the cost or whatever, or even the knowledge, because of course that was the original Uno Synth was our first synthesizer, or at least analog synthesizer. So this one is actually the second one. We're kind of proud of it. Again, in collaboration with Sound Machine. But yeah, that was the main goal, something that you have fun with.
So there's the primary differences here. The Uno Synth Pro has 3 oscillators per voice, and also you've got this twin filter architecture. Tell me a little bit about what you were going for with that.
Well, first of all, a lot of people asked on the first Uno Synth to have a sub oscillator, and we started with that idea on the Pro, but then we thought, but why do I need to be fixed on a sub oscillator when I can put actually another oscillator and use it and use it as a third source, and anyway. The biggest and the most known synthesizer of them all has 3 oscillators, so yeah, why not? Why not?
Well, and also it makes it paraphonic as well, which 3 notes. Interesting. I mean, I've been making some patches on here, which I think sound great. And if you mix and match the octaves, then you end up with kind of bigger sounding progressions because they kind of overlap and create various other sounds. So fair enough. I think that works really well.
Fair enough. In fact, in one of my some of the patches that I created myself, I kind of used one of the oscillators always tuned an octave below or 2 octaves below. So since I'm not really a keyboard player, I need to be honest on that, just put a triad on, but I always have the lower note without the need of a bigger keyboard. So you can do those type of tricks, and also given the fact that again it's paraphonic, you can select each type of a different type of waveform for each oscillators, if they're a type of tuning and modulations, and start creating some weird evolving sound.
I'm going to play this patch that I create just because I every excuse I get, it just. And this is using the same. That one's actually an octave lower than I'm playing. using the effects in here, but we'll get onto more about that later. So tell me about the filters as well, because two filters. With the original filter was an OTA filter, and you've put an SSI filter in there as well, and there's an interesting topography. Maybe you could take us through that.
Yeah, so I am myself a fan of the MS-20, so raw, really aggressive type of sound, and the two filters. I'm actually back in the days when I was partying in some clubs. I was using the MS-20 as a line with only the filters modulating themselves in some weird patches, really weird stuff. But anyway, I always have been a fan of two filters, because I do think that it kinds of open up a lot of other possibilities. So we do like our original filter, and that's why it is reproposed here, but it is way more improved, both in stability and both it is a little bit fat in a certain way as soon as you crank up a bit the resonance, which still doesn't out oscillate. It gets really fun, and we kept only the low pass and an high pass possibility, and also the inversion. And that filter can be inverted in phase, but that's something that I'm gonna arrive. And so we wanted that, but we also wanted something a little bit new. So Eric Nuland, our colleague of mine, and the other product designer for the synth, happened to know Dave Rostrom from SSI, from SSI, and which is the original designer of the SSM filters back in the days.
Yeah.
And yeah, we got to know him, and we kind of we're interested in that kind of sound, because one other thing that some people noticed is that they wanted a little bit more fatness in the bass sound. I also wanted something a little bit more fat and present. So we kind of choose we choose an SSI chip, the 2164, if I remember correctly, which is actually a VCA. But thanks to the guys at SSI, we designed it. We designed a filter based on that VCA, which turns out to be a multi-mode filter that can be switched between 2-pole and 4-pole, which is super nice. Also because sometimes, again, since it can be paraphonic, you might want to use the old trick of the Juno, where you put a little bit, you use the first filter as an high pass, and you crank up a little bit the resonance, so you fatten up the bottom end, and then use the 2-pole to play this pad kind of sound. But then as soon as you want a little bit more bass, you switch down on the 4-pole, and you get the usual Moogie type of bass sounds.
So do these fields run in series or parallel? They can be either, I guess, right?
Yes, they can be either, and that's fun because in series, for example, you can do band pass, or even a 6-pole at a certain point, a 6-pole low pass filters if you link them with a cutoff and even the resonance, or in parallel. And in parallel, you can get some kind of woolly sounding effects, especially as soon as you switch the phase of the first filter, cranking up the resonance again.
How do you switch the phase? Can you explain that to me? Because I wasn't quite sure how you do that.
The entire idea is to, as soon as you select filter, on top of the filter button, there's the two LEDs selecting filter 1 or filter 2 as soon as you press it. So if you, for example, any kind of filter that you go, the last knob is actually the mode of the filter. And if you are, for example, in filter number 2, you will see the 2-pole low pass serial, 4-pole low pass again series, or then you move to parallel, and then you can bypass the filter, and the filter 2, for example, can be bypassed in both series or in parallel. So if you bypass it in parallel, you're always gonna get the full sound of the synth, but then you move the other filter to create some other interesting sounds. So always there. Otherwise, there's also some kind of shortcut. You hold the filter, then pressing, for example, the step number 1, you get the mode 1 of the first filter. On the 4th, you get the 4th mode of the first filter. Then you can move on and move to the second filter, and at the end you can even select the link possibilities of the 2 filters, and even the tracking amount. So I can even select if I want the filter to be keyboard tracked.
That's neat. That's something I've just discovered. I've been showing that on mine because I've just got a slightly different close-up. Nice one. That's really handy. And so I suspect that there's quite a lot of little shortcuts in here. There's the separation. So does the separation move the peaks between the filters? So it's kind of like the Imposca kind of style. Is that what's happening there? Or if you were, or the spacing rather is what I mean. The spacing.
And the spacing, the spacing is actually moving the filter number to the filter 2 cutoff away or near the cutoff of the first filter.
Gotcha.
So it's actually moving the second filter, and that comes handy as soon as you link the filter. For example, if you create a bandpass, so you can with the spacing you can select the bandwidth of your bandpass,
right?
For example, or if you in some creative patches you get to use the filter number 1, the filter number 1, and I can actually go here and use the first filter as an high pass. I can use the spacing to control the other filter, so I can play with both at the same time.
Okay. Because you've gone for quite a limited, in the same way as the Unosynth, original Unosynth, you've gone for sort of limited parameter access, but on the Pro, you've gone for this kind of like sectional thing rather than the linear, the list. And it seems to work quite well, because I was initially thinking, I'm not sure if I'll be able to make those associations, but actually it works pretty well. So workflow is a big deal for you as well, right?
Yes. Also because, again, as you mentioned, we kind of stayed with a clean but rather easy interface, which kind of guides you to the synthesizer. The entire idea was to have something, again, this small, that you can bring it with you, create your sounds, even with the keyboard version, create your sound. But then, as soon as you're on a stage or you are performing, you kind of get your modulation going on. But anyway, the workflow works as a first impression kind of thing. So you kind of get your synth, and you add all of your section like it was lining up on a mini Moog. You have all of your section there that you can just select and tweak a little bit. Then as soon as you kind of discover how that worked, you can either press the data knob and go back and see the entire menu of the editing
is that
of
like
the
the preset
preset
menu, like here? So if I
exactly,
do that, I'm thing.
or
So
even if you press the preset exactly and go inside there, and as soon as you go there and you start experimenting, or you start reading even the manual, which is something that we do and we don't. We do or we don't, let's put it this way. You might discover that there are some way to don't enter the preset edit, so don't menu dive kind of thing by simply holding something and pressing the step of the
okay, so you're using that kind of paradigm. So on here, if I'm on oscillator, then I'm okay. So I'm
you got the FM. So, and depending on how many parameters there are still available for that section, you will get a certain amount of stuff. Of course, some of the shortcuts are not yet available, but that was also because I wanted to, and I'm actually receiving some of the feedback from some of the guys that helped out, some players that helped out the process of how can I say it, of designing the entire sound of the synth. So for example, during the next update, we're gonna add some other shortcut even for the effects, which is now only available in the edit preset menu, and some other nice stuff. But so the entire workflow of the unit is meant to be as easy as possible, as fast as possible, but at the same time with fully custom. So as soon as you select, as soon as you create your sound and all your modulations and all your tricks, you kind of get your flow as custom as possible for an interface like that.
Yeah, it makes, because one of the things that I didn't realize, again, if I come to this, you hit the effects button and you've just got, drive level, mod amount, because there's a modulation effect, there's a delay, and then there's a reverb. And I thought, oh, well, that's nice. But actually, you've got some pretty serious DSP under the hood here. The reverbs, and particularly, are quite complicated, right? And quite deep.
Yes. All of the digital effects, which again are not are only sense effects, so the entire audio path is analog. Even the drive again is a post filter drive, is analog. The funny two diodes basically that you just crank up. The digital effects are always in sense, so the amounts are actually sense like you have in a mixer, and all the algorithms comes both from some of our software and some don't. For example, the reverbs are not in any of our software department, so we are actually created them as new, and you have, as soon as I remember correctly, 4 type of reverbs: an old reverb, a plate reverb, the reverse, and a spring. And all of those were created as new. And in fact, for this synthesizer, we actually tailored those effects especially for this synth. So the reason why this whole reverb sound as it sounds is because we kind of designed that to fit the synth as it's supposed to. Same for the plate and
I can confirm they do sound really quite good. I'm a big fan of lots of massive, and I just turn it all up to full, and you do get this lovely. Well, I haven't got a patch set up here, but you get this lovely, big, expansive kind of reverb, and you've got on a couple of the algorithms you can affect the low time separately, the high time. So quite a lot of tweaking.
Even the fact that you can have 30 seconds of decay on a reverb only on the high frequency, but then only get 100 milliseconds on the low frequency. You get whatever other timing.
Interesting. Right. I think I'll have to try that.
In fact, I was going to. So, and I'm gonna put the low as possible.
Interesting.
So as soon as I put up again the timing,
yes,
I can start create some weird drone sounds.
Yeah, what I did actually, that sounds lovely. That sounds lovely. What I did is I created I had the envelope of filter envelope affecting the send to the reverb, so you could play short notes without it going in, but if you held note it would go into the drone, and then so you almost have like this kind of built-in freeze type function, which is I quite enjoy.
Yeah, fair enough. In fact, another thing that you can do is, for example, in this patch, the preset the preset number 20, which is actually I'm gonna copy it a little bit, tack, which is actually this kick. So here I have the opening of the delay and the reverb for that. So as you can hear, each time I got the snare, I open up the
delay send, yeah.
The delay send or the reverb send. If I use, and I'm gonna be quite fast with it, if I used an LFO to modulate the reverb amount, I can get this really soft type of modulations, which expands and kind of expands and close up regularly, which is quite nice. Where as soon as you want to create something a little bit different, even for pads or stuff like that, so it is a nice trick to try it out on your sounds.
Speaking of the modulation matrix, I had a question for you, because I noticed when I was doing this, so if I go into the mod matrix, just a straight sound here, and then I look in my mod matrix, I've got sources which seem to also be destinations, and I couldn't quite figure out how that was. Is it just because they're not filtered, or is there some way of, say, mapping I don't know, the oscillator tune to something else, or the filter? I didn't really understand that. Could you explain?
Okay. Well, on the sources, you actually get, for example, again, the oscillator tune. Take it as an example. It is actually the oscillator tune control. So either you control it with a CC externally or with the actual pot.
So it's
you're
these
gonna
knobs
get
here
the
as they're
control.
mapped. Right.
Yeah. As they are mapped. So as soon as you move that control, it's gonna modulate something as you prefer.
So I could open say if I wanted to open the filter and I was using the filter knob, I could map that knob. That is mapping that knob to another destination at the same time.
Is mapping that knob to another destination at the same time, while of course also using the exact, also changing, in this case, for example, the tuning of the oscillator. So if you want to do two things at the same time, in whatever for whatever reason and whatever necessity, you can actually do it. So an example is opening the filter while I don't know, sweeping up the oscillator. That is a way to that one is a way of doing it.
Oh, so it's kind of like a way of it's like macros, but using the existing knobs as macro sources. Yeah, interesting.
Fair enough. We can do it. We can put it like that. Yes, definitely.
So there are 16 slots at the moment with the matrix. Are those sources and destinations fixed, or are those sort of things that can be kind of expanded as and when you decide, you come up with an idea?
That is one thing that's inside, and it's going to be actually available in the next firmware, the 101, which is the fading of the the modulation, so you can actually fade in the amount of the modulation on top of I don't know, maybe instead of using the fade in of the LFO to increase the amount or something.
So you can set an attack, right?
Yeah, you can select an attack, kind of have another attack for the.
Okay, but in terms of the sources and destinations, can you kind of change not the number of them, but the amount of places it can go or the places it can come? Is that open? Is that something that you could say? I don't know, because at the moment you're doing the envelope depth. Could you say have the decay phase or the release phase of as part of the modulation?
Decay, attack. So the single stages of the envelopes is also something that is going to come in the next update. So yeah, we are actually planning to increase the number of sources and destination, and in fact, again, the single stages of the envelopes are going to be available as both sources or destinations. So that will kind of expand a little bit the sound possibility and the modulation possibility of that.
So I also noticed that we've got a sequencer built in. I mean, does that and you alluded to the fact, I haven't got to this part of the review yet, but that you alluded to the fact that there are it's possible to actually record parameters into the sequencer. That's new, isn't it, right?
Actually, both the Uno synth and the Uno drum could record parameter inside of the sequencer. Actually, the synth was around 20 different lines, 20 different parameters, something like that. And that's something that is a little bit improved also in the Synth Pro. You can now get for each of the step 20 different parameters, selecting between 80 available parameters, which is quite a lot. Yes. It is quite a lot. I tried myself to get into covering everything
to max it out. So can you record, like with some sequencers, can you record parameter movements only and not have any notes in, so you can use it as a modulation?
Yes, you can do that. You can do that. For example, I'm going to clear up this preset. No, I'm going to change it. Okay, so I can actually press record. As soon as I press record one time, I'm in the step editing type of recording. So as soon as I press a step, I'm going to get the view on the display showing the number of the step and what's inside the step. So for example, I'm going to move the cutoff a little bit here. I'm going to move it also here and here. Again, always holding the step and then recording. So as soon as I press play, and let's open the cutoff completely. Right, which is super fun. So as soon as you play whatever, you can play whatever you want. Yes, I'm not a good player. Yes, I know. Anyway, you can play whatever you want, and you can only have your modulation going on.
Okay. I think that's an essential thing in that. I mean, particularly in such a small instrument. I mean, effectively, it gives you, what's that? So 20 lanes of additional modulation over time. Yeah, that'll do. Basically,
yes. And you can record them in two different types. So again, as a step recording or real time. So you can even press rec and play together, and I'm started the real time recording. I just move with that, and again, and I have another modulation here. So here we are. The difference between the two recordings is that in the real time you get the smoothed version of your control,
right? Yeah.
While of course in the step edit recording you have hard changes.
As well as the sequencer, we've also got an arpeggiator, right?
Yes. You can actually record the arpeggiator on the sequencer, and that's quite fun, because as soon as you well, let's put down the tempo a little bit. Gonna find. As soon as you create your sequence even with the arpeggiator because I can just play. I can just press record and play, and what is going to happen is that it's going to record it directly in the sequencer. So now you recorded your tune into the sequencer, and that's quite handy. As soon as I don't know if it ever happens to you, but it happens to me that I'm on an arpeggiator and I kind of find that is the rhythm that I want. But you cannot record it in the sequencer, or you need to remember how to do it, etc., etc. So the funny part is that you can just press rec and play. It's gonna switch to recording directly on the sequencer, and it's gonna start playing directly from the sequencer, so you can start tweaking. So, and a fun part that is also, depending on the length of your sequence, is gonna record either 16 step or the entire 64. So if you remember to put your sequencer length to 64, which is the maximum length, and you start playing with the arpeggiator, you can even record all the changes, which is quite nice for creating a little bit more groovy sequencer.
Yeah, excellent. So I mean, this is out now. What are the primary deal? Because essentially the desktop and the Pro, the big one, which is what I've got here, they're essentially the same thing. So pretty much, what patches would be interchangeable between them. I mean, is there any other differences that we should be aware of?
No. The entire point was to have both of the instrument exactly the same. So to get the user the possibility to have the same exact instrument, either way you play, you buy the smaller desktop version for whatever reason. From the reason for myself would be that I'm actually using a bag full of another couple of machines, and that fits it. And I'm not a keyboard player, but I want the same, and I want the same engine of the bigger one. So apart from the Fatah keyboard and the physical wheels, there's literally nothing else.
There's nothing else different. Wow. That's brilliant. I mean, I like I say, so far I've been very impressed with the sound of it. So I think it's kind of, it feels, the only thing that I've been finding now is like, I've only got another LFO or another envelope. I'm really kind of like, I know what I want to do there. It'd be nice to. So is this extensible? I mean, do you think there's room for going further into more super synth, sort of polysynth, or are you? I guess I'm asking you questions you're probably not allowed to answer, which is a bit.
Well, I mean, some of those I can even ask. I can even reply. Some of those I don't know yet. But yes, there are some ways of expanding it, and there are some stuff that we're gonna do during the way, because again there is a plan of updates which covers not only what people have asked now, but also something that we thought from the beginning that should have been something that came later on. So there are some space for improvement.
So I didn't mention about the CV and gate, because we've got CV and gate both in and out on this, is that right?
Yes, and both of those are not hardwired, are actually fully programmable, so you can send out again the control of the pitch as we said before, or the filter movements, the LFOs, the envelopes, whatever you actually want, even the pitch and the gate of the keyboard, or you can receive from whatever other sources and modulate whatever you want. You get again the two in. So for example, in 1 and 2, or the out in 2 aren't fix it to be one a CV, the other one a gate, but it can be both gate or both CVs. So you can do whatever you want with that, actually. And you can even use those to send or receive sync.
That's quite interesting. So do you think there's maybe a possibility that some people might want an editor to be able to get to those things quickly? Is that something that you're considering?
In the beginning of the project, we didn't thought of the editor to be that essential, and we thought, okay, let's wait and see how many people are interested in having the editor. So basically 100%. 100% of the people asked us to regarding the editor, and fortunately, for obvious reason, we were of course prepared of doing that, because the plan was to release anyway a librarian for all the presets to be able to share or anyway manage your presets. So on top of that, we're gonna just add the editor as we did for the Synth.
Della, thank you so much for joining us and telling us a little bit about this. And like I say, all the best of luck with it. And I think it's probably going to have a thing. I mean, it feels like it's a sweet spot to me. So I wish you all the best of luck with it.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your kind words. I mean, we are kind of proud, and let's see. I hope so. It is really. It was a journey, not that easy, but real fun. So let's see.